Do you think this was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction? Because we've known about these indigenisation laws since they were first drafted back in 2007. Why the big scare yesterday when we found out it was going to be enforced?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's been a bit of an overreaction in the marketplace. As you said, you know, these rumours, if you want to call them that, has been around, and it's more than that. But I think, you know, to be realistic about it, it looks a lot worse, I think, than it actually is in essence. I think if you look to the likes of Impala on the Zimplats mine of theirs, which they own 87% of, they've made an agreement where they handed over 30% of the ore reserves in the early 2000s to the government, which my understanding is subsequently which they sold off, and so that 30% should already count for credits on their behalf. My understanding is further also on Anglo Platinum side, on the Unki mine, they've done a similar agreement with government, which also add up to a 30%, give or take. Aquarius Platinum, on the other hand, does not have such an agreement in place as of yet, but there is, and there seems to be sufficient resources on their side to come to some sort of agreement. So I think those type of agreements where they give away a part of the company, but it sort of sits at the back end of the free cash flow, if you want to call it, maybe 30, 40 years out on a lot of these mines, even further out. You know, it actually has a small impact on the actual NPV value of the of the company, opposed to the real impact, which a lot of people may read into a 51% ownership given away.
Is that, do you think, why Aquarius was down so much more than the others yesterday? It fell about 8.5%. The others were down in the region of 2 to 3%.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Aquarius got 50% ownership in the Mimosa mine, and obviously Impala Platinum's got another 50%. But given the portfolio of Aquarius and the percentage it actually contributes to NAV, which is around about 30%, and the argument around their position opposed to Impala and Amplats, as I explained just now, sort of, in my mind, explains quite a bit of the more negative activity sort of assigned to the share yesterday.
So a larger percentage of its production does come from Zimbabwe. How about implants? What percentage of total production comes from Zimbabwe?
At the moment, it's around about 30%, and you know, there is expansion programs in place, and they're looking obviously to up that. You know, value-wise, I guess, you know, it's probably around 20% if you take the Zimplats mine as well as their stake in Mimosa. So, but as I mentioned, you know, they're further down the line, I guess, as compared to a company like Aquarius.
Do you reckon they're going to get market-related prices for the stakes that they have to sell to local investors?
Yeah, I doubt it. I think, you know, if one sort of maybe take Impala as an example, you know, if you take the 30% of the 51, which should already be in place by the previous transaction they've done, so they should be in position with that credits. They've got, additionally to that, they've got another, call it 11%, or about 13 million shares, which they're also sitting in a trust account, which they've also earmarked for indigenisation program earlier in the 2000s. So it sort of leaves them with another 10% that they need to make up. I think the read-through on this is there definitely seems to be a posturing sort of argument for government going into this, you know, and I think
because we do have elections this year, don't we?
Correct, and I think the likelihood of this shares ending up in a state-owned enterprise opposed to a share ownership program, which the companies obviously would prefer for the employees, is more likely at this stage, and I doubt it whether government do have the funding at this stage to pay market-related values for these shares. So most likely they would go over and sort of count as credits. I can't really see them, you know, paying full fair value for these stakes.
How as an investor would you be viewing this at this stage? Would you be steering clear of some of these platinum counters until you had more clarity on how they intend to go about passing over the stakes to the Zimbabweans?
Yeah, As many things, as we've seen, you know, when these type of news stories hit the tape, they tend to overreact. And I think, you know, maybe with Impala below 190 Rand, you know, I think there's various fair values in the market, but let's say it's around about 220, 230 Rand. Even if you take the whole of Zimplats out and Mimosa, you sort of get to a value of around about 195 Rand. So if you're positive about I would say more the global outlook, and you are fairly positive about the sector, I don't think the values here is extreme. I think it incorporates a lot of this risk already, and I don't see it as a bad entry point.
Well, how are you seeing the global markets at this stage and demand going forward? Do you think it will be supportive of platinum prices where they are?
I think so, you know, and I think, again, you know, if with South Africa 75% of production, you know, at some point it gotta move to a position where it incentivizes miners to actually take out the ounces. You know, I think at these sort of levels with a stronger rand around R6.80, with the platinum price maybe where it's now slightly weaker, the likes of Anglo, Platinum, Lonmin don't really make any free cash flow, i.e. they can't pay for their capex. So, you know, with that underpinned, I am fairly cautiously optimistic about the sector and PGM prices in general.